It is just after 9:30. Welcome back to Breakfast Television. Thanks for joining us. Our top story today, schools in BC are reopening today under new guidelines to keep staff and students safe. Our Greg Harper joins us live outside an elementary school in Pitt Meadows this morning. And Greg, not a lot of kids returning to school today.
No, it's been very quiet here this morning. Good morning, Mary. Good morning to you as well. Just outside Edith McDermott Elementary here in Pitt Meadows. Looks a lot different outside here this morning, that's for sure. Only 27 students arrived back to class here today. That's grades 6 and 7. A quick look at what it looks like. This gives you an idea what they're doing here anyways. You can see these painted dots here. This is where students are lining up before heading into the classroom. The bell went at about 25 after 8 this morning. It's an early start at this school. And just to my right is the parking lot. There are vehicles in it, but the parking lot is only accessible for staff. They decided to close it off, not allowing parents to drive in like they normally would do to drop their children off. They're being asked to walk their child to school for the time being until this school year ends. Now, this school has been very proactive, actually releasing a number of videos, and here's a look at what it looks like inside one of the classrooms.
Now, boys and girls, I just want to let you know a little bit about what we're doing. So, before we
we talked to the principal here, and they had quite a bit of fun making these videos, and he says it was actually a bit of a stress release for a lot of the staff here as well that have been quite anxious about the restart to the school year. So there are 350 students that go to Edith McDermott Elementary. Only 80 are returning to class this week. The principal says they've been working hard here to get ready to make sure things are good to go, and these videos he hopes have really helped to release, that anxiety that many have been feeling about this day.
The response has been outstanding. I jokingly wondered how we became sort of the poster child for this sort of movement. When I posted it onto the PAC website at first, I put in a disclaimer, and that disclaimer was, pardon the frivolity and the poor script and the lousy editing and all the rest of it, that we did take it very seriously, because at first look, you might think that we're not. There's a little bit of hamming acting going on and so forth. However, that also has helped to help break some of the tension.
We purposely timed the reopening of schools to be sure that we had a period of time of an incubation period to see if we were going to start seeing increased numbers of cases in our communities once we started our restart program. And if we had seen an increase, then we would have postponed or delayed the start of schools.
So students in kindergarten to grade 5 have the option of going to the classroom 2 to 3 times a week. Grades 6 and 7, 1 day a week. Here at Edith McDermott Elementary, that is today for grades 6 and 7. Just 27, as I mentioned. We didn't see a lot of parents here this morning as well. Mary, over to you.
Well, perhaps maybe we'll see more next week after they witness how the first week goes. Thank you so much, Greg. 9:35 now on Breakfast Television. COVID-19 restrictions are loosening around the province, and today TransLink begins easing restrictions on buses in Metro Vancouver to meet rising demand. Signs meant to keep people apart will be removed from the seats. Fare collection also returns today, along with front door boarding, and buses will be running on pre-pandemic schedules. Passengers are being asked to wear a mask, as physical distancing is not always possible on transit. Plexiglass barriers will separate drivers from passengers. Buses will be able to operate at about 2/3 capacity before they're considered full. Over the last month, TransLink says ridership has increased by more than 30%. A large but peaceful gathering outside the Vancouver Art Gallery last night. Thousands came together to protest racism and police brutality. For a while, the crowd stood in silence with fists in the air. The focus remained on the speakers, some who shared experiences of being racially profiled and detained by police. The demonstration was called in solidarity with protests that have spread across the U.S. in response to the killing of George Floyd in Minneapolis and demanding action against racism in Canada. Prime Minister Justin Trudeau opened his daily briefing this morning to Canadians, addressing the growing unrest and anti-racism demonstrations on both sides of the border.
Over the weekend, we saw thousands of people gather across the country to join peaceful protests against anti-black racism. By standing together and denouncing the few who would try to derail these demonstrations, Canadians are sending the message that they will never tolerate injustice.
Over 4,000 arrests have been made in more than 140 U.S. cities. A warning, some of the pictures in this next video are disturbing. The driver of a tanker truck has been arrested after plowing through thousands of protesters in Minneapolis. Thankfully, no one was hurt. Protesters across the country continuing to gather in solidarity for George Floyd. He died in police custody after an officer kneeled on his neck. That officer is now facing murder charges. Members of Floyd's family say they've spoken with President Trump and with former Vice President Joe Biden in the wake of his death.
The Vice President, I loved his conversation. He talked to me for like 10, 15 minutes. And I was trying to talk his ear off because he was talking to me constantly. Great conversation. But Trump, it lasted probably 2 minutes.
At least 40 cities have imposed curfews, and the National Guard has been activated in over 20 states. Near the White House in Washington, D.C., police fired tear gas at protesters. At a peaceful protest in Texas, the family of George Floyd denounced the violence happening across the country.
I mean, tearing up things, it's not going to solve anything. My dad is in peace, and we have to be the ones that deal with all this stress, and it's going to be kind of tough to get over this day by day.
The officer at the center of the video that sparked the outrage was scheduled to appear in court today. His court date has been pushed back to June 8th. He's been charged with third-degree murder and second-degree manslaughter. He will remain in custody for the week. Today, the Prime Minister announced help for Canadian cities strapped for cash. He says the federal government will fast-track $2.2 billion in funding for municipalities.
In response to COVID-19, we will make available $2.2 billion for municipalities in the coming weeks through their yearly federal support with the Gas Tax Fund. Normally, municipalities receive these payments in 2 installments. But we know that cities and towns need this money right away as they deal with COVID-19. That's why we're making the full 2020-21 payment available now.
And Ottawa is putting millions of dollars towards encouraging Canadians to explore their own backyards this summer. The funds will go towards promoting holiday travel inside Canada as international borders remain largely closed due to COVID-19. The funds include $30 million originally earmarked for attracting foreign visitors. Around $40 million will go towards helping tourism agencies in Western Canada and Ontario adapt their operations to the pandemic.
Bob and Doug, welcome to the International Space Station.
Well, SpaceX has done it. It has delivered 2 NASA astronauts to the International Space Station for the first time. The Dragon capsule arrived on Sunday morning, hours after a historic liftoff from Florida, and docked automatically 19 hours after liftoff. This marks the first time a privately built spacecraft delivered a crew to the orbiting lab. It's not clear how long the astronauts will spend aboard the station before their return flight. Wow, pretty incredible. I know you like that story, Russ.
Yeah, no, I'm an absolute geek for the space program, and I mean, it was an historic moment as well, and yet I couldn't get over the fact that social media was blowing up with the fact that it was astronauts Bob and Doug, and it was takeoff, eh? It was
Bob
just
and Doug
perfect,
taking off,
right?
orbiting
Bob
Earth.
and Doug for the takeoff.
Love it.
Priceless stuff on social media for the weekend. Thanks for that, Mary. Hey, your forecast.